Welcome to Lovely Esteem. I'm Lovely, the auntie you always wanted, the sister girlfriend you didn't know you needed, honey. You got to have self love to have self esteem. And here we know that God don't make no junk. So we're going to sit down, talk about it, and see how we can fix it, baby. Let's do it. Hey guys, this is Lovely with Lovely Esteem, and welcome back to the Healing Through Conversations podcast. Today, I was able to talk to Miss Amber Jackson, Miss Jackson, if you're happy, while we were trying to figure out if this was a good fit for her, which I love doing, right? And we connected in such a natural and gentle way. We were able to have such a deep conversation on our first, like the first time we talked to each other. It was amazing. And I feel like you guys are going to so enjoy listening to her. She believes in connecting the spirit with the heart. The heart helps the business owner. The business owner who has the heart and mind together then creates this safe space where they're able to not only grow financially, but grow spiritually within themselves and within their business. And I think this is going to be a great podcast. Please, you guys enjoy this one. Hey guys, this is Lovely with Lovely Esteem, and welcome back to the Healing Through Conversations podcast. We appreciate you being here. Today, I'm having a good conversation with Miss Amber Jackson. Now, let me say this. We had a conversation before, kind of off camera, and it clicked. It was so organic. Like sometimes you feel stilted in a conversation because you're like, we don't really know each other, and maybe we don't have the same background, or it wasn't like that. And it wasn't, I love when the conversations aren't trauma bonds. Like it's just genuine bonds together. And today we're going to have a conversation because Miss Amber is the coach, people. I tell you all the time, coach, tag me in. Ha! Leadership coaching. Ha! Revenue generate. She just said, we're going to get you together because being an entrepreneur is a different kind of game. All right. And you need to have people in your corner on your team who want to see you win, who aren't afraid to tell you the hard things that you need to do in order to get there. And somebody who is also on that journey too, because I feel like if I have a coach, a mentor, a business partner who's also on this journey with me, they understand the pitfalls and what success looks like and to celebrate the small things. So Amber, thank you for being on the podcast. Please tell us about yourself.
Oh my goodness, thank you. I am so excited to be here. Thank you for that intro. I am Amber Jackson. I think what I add about who I am, mine is a story of firsts. I am from Pittsburgh, small Black family. I was first in my family to go and graduate from a 4-year college. I love that my mama will challenge you on that because she graduated with her bachelor's 2 weeks before I did.
I
But
love
I
it.
still, mama, you will challenge me, but I claim that as my first. But I was the first to like go to work in corporate America. I was the first to start quitting jobs. I come from people who kept the same job for 30 years, and I still remember the first job I ever quit. And it was a good I mean, that was all my mom would tell me. It was a good job. Why are you quitting good jobs? And I'm like, I'm not fulfilled, mommy. And that is like radical for her generation and the elders and ancestors that came before her. So that was a big first, right? Was me learning to listen to the quiet voice inside of me. That's an opportunity chaser that wanted more responsibility and bigger checks. And it led me on this journey of a beautiful corporate career. And at the same time, that voice that was my achiever became a saboteur, right? I love when I coach talking to people about how we each have strengths, but every strength can be overused and it becomes a shadow, something that hurts us. So my hyperachiever my achiever turned into a hyperachiever, a saboteur. And that saboteur led me through experiences like battling perfectionism. It led me through extreme fear of rejection. It led me through experiences of burnout. It led me through experiences of imposter syndrome. And so after all of that piling on, and I would heal it for a little bit, but then I'd go into a new job and I would find myself hitting burnout faster and faster, that I decided to do another first and walk away, right? To walk away from corporate, to spend some time healing, reconnecting with the divine authority that I was given at birth and that I had put aside and ignored because I didn't understand how that part of me could make a check. And so that's the journey that I've been on for the past 18 months. And I think this is actually like the sexiest first I've ever done yet.
I told you it's gonna be good, y'all. I told y'all. I was like,
Yes.
they're gonna be like, why is your intro so hype? First off, mind your business.
Yeah.
You don't know me. You don't know my heart. All right. Today has been a good day. I was like, oh, we're gonna have some good meaty parts in this.
Yes.
And what I love about what you said is understanding what it means to be a groundbreaker, right? Because we have this and what it looks like and doesn't look like, right? Because some people are like, if you're not a millionaire, you didn't break any ground. If you're, if you don't have a Louis, a Fendi, you're not breaking ground. But I'm like, do you know what it feels like to break a fragile generational thread? Do you know what it feels like to break a strong generational trait? Like, you really have to think about that.
And I completely agree, because what's groundbreaking is always defined by what are your values, right? So you have to first connect to what are your values. And then in the context of those values, what is groundbreaking to you, right? If your value is around money and financial prosperity, and you grew up in an upbringing that nobody ever made six figures, then absolutely becoming a millionaire is groundbreaking. That's not my value. I didn't grow up in like a whole bunch of wealth, and I choose that that's not my value, right? My value is in sovereignty. I'm very aware that I come from a long line of Black people and enslaved people who never had complete sovereignty and authority over their life. And I have a huge value around autonomy and being able to dictate the life that I live. So taking actions that grow my experience of sovereignty, that's what's groundbreaking for me.
I love that. And also the fact that I tell people all the time, if you can, in the midst of all the overachieving, the overdoing, the stress, the pick me, the I can do, right? Find space in your head to go, one second. I'm not happy. So let me reorganize my brain, rediscover who I am, reclaim my story, and then start a whole new, not a genre, baby. You started a whole new genre for yourself. That is so top tier in a lot of ways, because it lets you know that even if you had to start from nothing, you know how to build yourself from nothing to something, because we're being carried by our ancestors all day long, right? And if we know that we have a strong foundation, how can we lose?
And even I completely agree. And sometimes like you'll talk to people and they're like, well, how do I know I have a strong foundation? Right? They'll replay the narratives of their life that don't look like a strong foundation. And where actually I found my strong foundation isn't in being able to name it and say, well, I have this and I have that, and like gassing myself up. You know where my strong foundation comes from? I haven't lost yet. I haven't lost yet, y'all. Like when I made the decision to be a full-time entrepreneur, I was like, Amber, you have never not been provided for. Like, we talk God. I call him God. Some people call him universe. Do you? I have never not been provided for in any of the years that I've existed here. And I don't think he's about to stop now if what I'm doing is aligned with that quiet, confident voice inside of me, right? Like, this wasn't me just all of a sudden becoming lazy and deciding that I didn't want to work anymore. It's like, no, like I am pursuing the voice inside of me, the divine authority inside of me. And it's telling me to be an entrepreneur. And just so you know, like I'm in a season right now, I'm gassing myself up, even as I'm talking. I am reminding my spirit, even as I'm like saying it for you and for the listeners. But it's like, Amber, you didn't just, this wasn't a crazy idea. This wasn't like I saw a reality show and decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. This is something that was building in me for years and years. And I decided to step out in faith and say yes. And my firm foundation was I've never not been provided for in every day of my life. So he's going to provide for this too.
I love that. And it's interesting because I'm telling you, when I woke up this morning, I was saying to the lady that I spoke to before you, who's a spiritual coach, that today it connected so well. It couldn't have gotten any better, the connection, because you're the second podcast for the second half of my 4th season, right? So I broke it up. I had 13 episodes that'll be, and then you guys will be the next 9. And I was like, great. And I said, I just felt this morning, I was like, you know what? We're about to fill up some cups.
Yes.
We're about to have some good times. We're about to connect so well. And I think that the connection sometimes this is like when I talk about generational threads, right? That it's not just your family. It's your friends, your connections. It's the tribe that you create, because your tribe, that tribe, the people that you go out and you say, hey, can we talk? And you connect and you pull them in, right? You're building this spirituality together. You're building this bridge together that allows you to not only be more faithful in your faith, but to have your spirituality be a part of that uplifting, right? Because you're not going to build a weak tribe. That's not what you are out here trying to produce. No. And it's like, yes, your family can be a part of your tribe, but like as you go through life and you start having the sister girlfriend and the brotherhood, and you're connecting and pulling these people in, you're like, I'm going to do so good by you that when it's my turn, you're going to be able to do good by me. And you're not even going to think about it. You're not even going to know that you're doing good by me. And that's what I love
natural, right? It's going to be natural. And yes, I love that we're supposed to have tribes that are outside of our families. I always say that, my family, they're the ones that teach me unconditional love. I can't shake them. I don't have a heart to shake them. Even when like I want to shake them, I can't shake them, right?
You gotta shake the phone.
You gotta shake the phone, right? But I believe that like the family that we are born into, in whatever circumstance, and a lot of people endure a lot of trauma, and I absolutely want to hold space, that family, the natural family, is not always a safe place to be or a safe relationship to be in. Some of them we got to love from afar, but any work that we do to love them is an exercise in building unconditional love.
Yep.
Right. Like, cause we're just loving each other because of DNA. We didn't control any of this.
Yeah.
Versus our friends, the people that we attract as we walk through life, right? People come, people go. And if you're lucky, I always say you just need those like 3, 4, maybe 5 friends who are the fam. And I know who they are. I'm like, I love the brothers that I have by birth, but trust, there's 3 to 4 in this world who I'm like, if I had been at like the picking line of picking my family, they would have been in here with me, right? Like that's how tight the bonds in the relationship are. And so it's those relationships plus the family that, to me, I just feel so lucky to get to do this journey of life with.
I love that. And you know what? And it's so interesting. I love how you say your born family.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think that we hold space for adoption, fostered, that grandma who's taking care of that kid, the auntie who stepped up, the uncle who stepped up, giving all of your family the space to bond together and to help us grow. I have a ladybug that loves me so much. It has been on me. And I keep saying, listen, I don't want to hurt you, but like, you're not on the podcast today. It's been all day. It's like, hey, I said, I know you're good luck. Listen, I love you too, but like, I'm telling you that today has been so immaculate in energy. It really has been a vibe.
It's reaffirming. Yes.
It's like coming. But I think that when we talk about connections and your growth as 18 months as an entrepreneur is no joke. I don't care what anybody says. Like your first 5 years of entrepreneurship, you're not only rewiring your mind, you're
Yeah.
detoxing at the same time, right? It's like that duality. I know
Yeah.
what corporate does. I know the steady check. I know what to expect. Entrepreneurship, I know what I want and prefer. And now we have these lessons that we learn along the way, these connections that we have along the way, and this growth of unconditional love for ourselves because we are actually doing it, right? Like you can talk about it for years, but until you start doing this,
Yeah.
it looks different.
It requires so much grace and compassion. People will tell you that like having your own business and being an entrepreneur will change who you are as a person. And I think that now, 18 months in, I'm just starting to understand what that means because it's so many cycles, right? It is what you said. There's an active shedding
Mm,
of identity,
mm,
right? Like if you're an entrepreneur, your previous identity of corporate, it serves you 90% less than you think it does.
absolutely.
It does not serve you. And the faster you can shed it and let it go and be vulnerable, the better you're going to be. The more you hold on to that identity, the harder entrepreneurship is going to be. Right. So you have to be like, have compassion to like, I always say, like, I just like grab in my arms and love the part of me that had the corporate identity. And then I let her go and I invite her to sit in the back seat of the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the part of you that has to learn, which means the ego has to adjust to not being an expert at something and to being new at something again. And like if you're in your 30s and 40s, ego doesn't like that. It is uncomfortable being new at something all over again for the first time. I was just driving from the market and my mind was circling with all of these books. Like I'm getting ready to finish a book and I have all of these books like that I want to read, dozens of books on my to read list. And so I was thinking about like, hey, let's take 2 or 3 books that center around a similar like related topic and build them as my learning plan for September. Like I'm going to read and really focus on mastering this content to really just highlight like entrepreneurship is so much active learning, right? Especially when you are a party of one and you're not ready yet to hire talent and assistants in your building.
Yes.
You become the marketer. You
Yes.
become the content developer. You become the client delivery solution. You become finance. You become taxes. Like you are doing it all. And so you're constantly learning. And that requires an incredible amount of self-compassion and grace because it's always going to feel like it's easier to just go back to corporate where you're an expert and to run back to that identity that feels comfortable but is not aligned with the person that you're trying to become in this season.
I love that. And all of that, as she referenced before, ego, right?
Yeah.
And I was having this conversation with my husband, but it's because I do these webinars. I love doing one-off webinars where it has nothing to do with and everything to do with the subjects that you need, right? So I focus on mental health all the time. It's a big thing for me because mental health is life. So I focus on life, being able to talk to people, interact with people, and understand the differences because we don't have to always agree on all 10 items, right? But the core items is where I kind of fall in line. And I took a webinar and they were talking about mental health in rural areas. So we're talking about areas where it's 50, 60, 200 acres of land, almost no Wi-Fi, and maybe a cell phone. And maybe the town has 1,000 people in it. And this one lady, she said, think about this. You are in a small town. Everybody knows your car, they know your family, they know everything. And you set that car in front of a therapist office. By the time you get out of there, your information has been spread wider than the bandwidth that what you have. So she was like, that's what I need people who are on the coast to understand.
Yeah.
And that to me is when we're talking about educating ourselves, it's not just educating ourselves within the realms, the lands that we walk, but it's like outside of those things as well. With like you said, you may not want to do taxes, but here we are. We do them every year. Now we have to learn how to add on to business. I may not understand email marketing, but here we are learning how to do those things. I may not understand full copyright, but here we are taking a webinar, those things. And I think that but if your mind is always wondering, this is a great space to be, because you literally are always like, like,
Yes. It's and it's giving yourself, it's celebrating that you are unsatisfied, unfulfilled in what you're currently doing, right? Like a lot of times when our mind is wandering, and I go back when we were kids, it's different, right? What is it? Idle hands are the devil's workshop, like things that we would say like that, because we wanted to not have kids be idle. Okay. So you were talking about idling and allowing the mind to idle. And I actually think that's one of the beautiful things about becoming an entrepreneur, right? If you are in a corporate role and you find that your mind can't settle, that, you don't just want to do the same thing, the same primary focus day after day. I love being an entrepreneur because it's okay to let your mind roam, right? Some days my mind wants to think deeply about coaching and frameworks and the journey, the transformational journey that my clients are going on. And some days my mind just wants to be like in long range planning. I just want to be visioning for myself. What does this business look like in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years? When do I want to think about hiring somebody to help me on my team, right? So that's what I love about entrepreneurship, is that having a mind that wants to wander is actually a really great thing, right? And there's
yes.
always some part of your business that will benefit from your deep thought about it.
I love that. And I love that it becomes a playground, right? It's now
Yeah.
in a space where we get to not only explore, but we get to play, we get to put puzzles together. You get to do all of these, and you get to define what what entrepreneurship looks like for you. Because in
Yeah.
corporate, it's all these structures. This is the way it's going to be. This is how it is. And when I'm always like, an entrepreneurship, yes, it is very hard at the beginning to have a work-life balance, because there's so much you're trying to put together, but you get
Yeah.
to add play into your work. And
Yeah.
that's what I like. You get to add give into your work. You get to add gentleness into it, patience into it. And those are things that you don't always have, or that's not allotted to us when we're creating these spaces for ourselves. Like, you get to define, you're like, okay, Amber, today we're going to do 3 hours of work, and then we're going to go over to the library, pick up a book, go to Sephora, pick up some lip gloss. Oh, I want to have lunch today by myself. Like, you get to do these things, but still know that if you decided right now, and I can pull out my laptop, work from the cafe. I can, all these little things that make
Yeah.
you excited about working on your projects.
Yeah, we have a lot more autonomy over your time. But one of the things that you just mentioned that actually made me think about corporate was when you're talking about, like, in entrepreneurship, it can sometimes be a challenge early on to strike balance. And balance is such a trigger word for me. I don't like the word balance, because I feel like as like humans, we use the word balance to like judge ourselves. We're out of balance. And my thing is always, there is nothing about our species that is naturally in balance. You don't know to not put like your hand on top of a fire until you get burned, right? Like, we are sensory beings, and it's the sensing that is what allows us to strive for equilibrium, or what we sometimes call balance. So what I love in entrepreneurship, and what is a part of like the leadership style that I was developing and what I coach now, is about having a relationship to your values, right? So rather than focusing on work-life balance, or sometimes I'll use the language of work-life integration, I when I hear my clients say that they don't have work-life balance, to me, it's a trigger, because I'm like, I feel like you're judging yourself. It sounds like you have an idea in the mind, has an idea of what balance is, and you are evaluating how your actual life experience compares and contrasts with that ideal. I'm not really into judging self in this season of my life. And so instead, I say, what's are your values around work? What are your values around family? What are your values around your relationship with your partner? And how are you living in relationship to those values right now? And what would you like to change? Right? Like, and I think by thinking about it as relationship to our values versus balance, for me, it just invites a lot more dynamic into the relationships. It allows it to have some give and take. It's got some flexibility. We can put some weight on it. Versus balance, it gives me like the metaphor of a seesaw, and it looks like a zero sum game. right? That I either have something or something else, versus that's not what life is. Life is way more like some sort of like, it's more like Jello, right? Like, what's the container we're putting it in? How does it need to exist right now? Like, that's what I want my life to feel like, versus a seesaw.
No, I agree, but I will tell you, as I tell people all the time, I was 26, 3 kids, freshly married. There was no balance. I was working 14 hours a day. I needed somebody to step in and go, hey, listen. But in my head, the work needed to come because we had the children. The husband is working because we have the kids. The kids are being taken care of by my mom. My mom's coming to my job. Like, we're doing the thing, right? And the kids are like, yay, I get to hang out with mommy. I'm like, yes, you get to hang out with mommy at work. Sounds great. Like, we were doing the thing, but it was chaotic. And I really had to get to a place where, one, my kids got older, because I needed them to get a little bit older, because when my children were smaller, I didn't let them go hang out with friends. They couldn't go to camps or anything until they could tell me if something was wrong. We're gonna learn about our bodies in scientific terms.
Yeah.
We're not talking about no parts and no. What did they touch? Where are we going? Who am I taking care of? Because I'm the mob now. Like, this is what we're doing. But also learning how to rewire myself to not only take care of me, mask on my face, mask on my husband's face, attach the kids, grab the dog, everybody out. Like, and that was a really hard space for me for a long time, probably until like 30, 31, because you're learning how to acclimate to all these different personalities. Everybody has different needs. We're all running in a circle together. And I love the word values, because the value of that time was we were trying to organize. We were trying to learn how to organize this family that we had together. And my balance didn't really come into my 30s, but a lot of that came in with me saying no as well. Learning how to say no, learning how to value my time, and learning how to take that time that I valued and then allocate it to the things that mattered most in my life. Like you said, value, right? But I did need balance at the beginning. I'm not even going to lie, not 1%.
And I love what you said, is that it wasn't like you were taking on new identity, right? Who am I as a mom, wife? All of this is like new identity that's coming on Lovely, right? In her late 20s, her early 30s. And what I'm really like struck by that you shared is that you didn't, as you were changing so rapidly and taking on these new identities, you were still making time and space to adjust them, not just to what you had been modeled for you, but who did you want to be, right? I love what you said about your children, right? That you were like, no, I'm going to take on this identity of mom, but I'm going to insert some new boundaries around who has access to my children, and how we're going to teach them to use language and language about their body at a very young age. And for me, like when you said that, it struck me, because I have other friends who are doing the same thing, right? Who are creating these boundaries. And I know that it's not easy, because your parents were with you and their parents are with them. Yo, grandmas and granddads get in their feels as soon as you tell them that you were not raising your kids exactly the way that they raised you. They get so defensive in their ego.
Bangers.
Ooh, child.
Hey. We're in a different time, all right? We're in a different time now where the internet can get to my child faster than I can. So I need to be able to talk to my children and have them to be able to. Articulation is so huge for me. Huge for me. And I tell people, articulation is not always about grammar, spelling. It's not about your accent. It's being able to get your words out into your community or your culture in the way that they speak, so they understand exactly what you're saying, and you can relate to each other to help fix something or celebrate something, right? That's what we're doing, connection. And we don't always get to see that, because when you tell a child to sit down and shut up, what do? We make them swallow the pain. We make them swallow the anxiety. We make them swallow the stress. And now all of a sudden we want them to turn 7 and be like, so tell me about your day. They haven't learned how to articulate what's happening throughout their day, because you made them suck in the words so much. We're not doing that.
And even if it's not at 7, I think, the age that I've really witnessed in children around me is like something strange happens at 12. The way that they quiet and stop sharing and filtering when they're like that 12, 13, 14, like just before high school and
Mm-hmm.
absolutely in high school, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it becomes, so it's, if you couldn't let them talk at 4, 5, and 6,
Whew.
whatever they're experiencing at 12, 13, and 14, it's even harder for them to want to articulate and feel that they can trust
Yes.
sharing it with the adults in their life, and the adult knows how to hold space and create a safe container for that child to process whatever it is that they're experiencing. And that can be good or bad. It doesn't always have to be like something sinister, although things can happen, but it can just be like, a boy child gets, bullied at school, but if whenever you come from home, he just gets a bunch of men don't cry and you're a man, he never gets a safe space, a safe container to say that, yeah, guess what? 14-year-old boys, your feelings can be hurt.
Right?
Welcome
It
to
matters. You're
humanity.
allowed to have
Yeah,
more than 10 emotions. Like you're allowed to
exactly.
step outside of that, and that doesn't make you anything other than human. That's the
Yeah.
that's the crazy part. Like it's so interesting to me how we treat ourselves as adults, but we don't realize how much what you tell us as children change the makeup, right? So
Yeah.
you figure you have an infant from like 0 to 3, they are absorbing everything, right? They know smells, they can tell when the energy's off in the room. That's why they cry, they laugh, they want to hug you, they trying to give you joy, they want that connection. They like, hey, I can make you feel better. I've been in your body. I know how you feel when you go like this. I know that your hormones change. I still smell that, let me get there, right? And then you figure from like 5 until maybe 9, they're just reinforcing all the things that they've learned. Just
Yeah.
how to be kind, how to be nice, how to share, how to start really articulating their emotions in a way that makes them feel safe, but
Hmm.
also makes them feel like their own person, because they still
Yeah.
have to learn how to walk in their own right. But you're right about 9, when those hormones are moving faster than they were at birth, when
Yeah.
now not only do you smell yourself, you smell others, you can't tell why you like those smells or don't like those smells.
Mhm.
You have all of these voices coming at you, telling you you're good enough, you're not good enough. This is how I should dress, I should look like this. And now all the visual noise that kicks in from the internet and school conversations, the books we read, the news we're taking in, on top of the family that we have behind us.
Yeah.
Sometimes you go mute because you don't understand how yesterday you wanted to hopscotch and today hopscotch is the worst thing you could ever think of, because what if I jump and I jiggle? Because my
Yeah.
family told me that jiggling is bad. It's those little teeny things, those, like we said earlier today, those little pinpricks
Yep.
that happen, small.
Yeah, super tiny. And as adults, I think it's easy for us to become distracted and forget that children are just dealing with such an overload of information that we have forgotten because we don't, right? Like as adults, we are so familiar with our environment,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we're post, not a lot gets to me that I don't want to get access to me, right?
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
get to choose when I go out of my home. I choose who I'm in relationship with. Like the most times that I'm probably vulnerable to like the world at large is like when I go to the grocery store or when I go to like a stadium to hear a concert, right? But
Right.
other than that, we as adults, we have a lot of control over our environment.
Mm-hmm.
Kids do not.
No.
They are much more frequently in places with people who are outside of like their normal, habitat of, 100, people we see every day. They have a lot more people. It's changing every couple of years. So as soon as you get comfortable in a school,
Mm.
4 years later, we're sending you to a new one, right? Like, and we as adults, we forget that these are really destabilizing and
Yep.
formative experiences,
Yes.
right? And so, what our kids need more than anything is our grace,
Mm.
our compassion,
Mhm.
and us to hold space for them to just talk about or just be with the change, right? Like sometimes they don't want to talk about it. They're just like, there's a lot going on. Okay, cool. We can just sit here in silence. You don't have to
Yeah.
talk,
Yep.
right? Like you can just, you're going through a lot of change. Your mental health. Where do you feel that in your body?
Yeah.
Can we
Yes.
notice
I
it?
love that. I
What's
love
the
that.
size of it? What's the shape? Does it have a texture? Does it have a color? Where is it at now? Okay, cool. Let's let it pass. right? Like half of it's so like I am not a parent, but I can imagine I'm like, when my kid comes home from school, they've been around people and talking all day. The question of how was your day is I don't even know how to answer that.
That's because I'm going to tell you the whole thing and you're going to be like, what? Or
Yeah.
I mean, but also, like you said, a moment to detach from the energy that touched you all day, right?
Yes.
Because if you're at school and your school has, at this point, I mean, depending on what high school you go to, what we have 2, 3, you can have 1,000, 1,500, like it could be so
Oh
crazy
yeah.
depending on where you go to school at, right? And of course, the more private, more money, the less people
Yeah.
you have there. But I can promise you that if I'm around 10 people, by the
Oh
time I
yeah.
get home, I don't want to have a conversation. I want to take a shower, hopefully wash as much of everybody's energy off of me,
Yeah.
replay all the information that I absorbed when I was walking around, and then like take a nap because I need to reboot myself to make sure
Yes.
that I can give that back to you. And I think what also I love that you said, but we didn't fully say it, is that you're teaching children how to be interdependent and dependent at the same time, right? It's like I
Yeah.
want you to be independent because I want you to understand how much value you hold. That this
Yeah.
space, this world is, you have, this space is all yours. Everything that's your fingertips, this is all yours. But
Yes.
when you come back home, this is a safe space to dump, get
Yeah.
rid of, rejuvenate, embrace the emotions. Talk,
Yeah.
talk to me about liking Tommy. Talk to me about liking Brenda. Somebody said you want to do such and such. You get to have all these conversations without combativeness,
Yeah. You
without
get to
fighting.
process,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
it's interesting. Like I'm reflecting on my childhood, and I was like, I don't know that home was ever designated as a space to process. And that's
Mine
what
was
we're
not.
really missing
Mine was not.
is a priority around holding space to process. Doesn't
Yes.
mean that something is wrong. The reason we're in therapy in our 20s and 30s is because of emotions that we didn't process,
Yes.
right? We like shut it down, we made ourselves unavailable, and emotions, which have energy, they have charge, they have motion.
Mm-hmm.
They are meant to be like the tides of the ocean. They are meant to come and to go. But for 18, years, depending on the family upbringing that you were raised in, you had very little, not at all, or a lot of space to process.
Yeah, there was
So
no
that's why
go.
yeah,
There was no go.
I know. I'm lucky because while I didn't have like, kind of high emotional intelligent, like high EQ parents, they're beautiful people, didn't hold a lot of space for processing. And I get it. They had to work. They were like, we were putting food on the table, and they were. I'm lucky that through my own like introversion, I developed habits around journaling.
Mm-hmm.
I would write stories, right? I
Mm-hmm.
dream vividly. And so
Yes.
for me, dreaming, writing like make believe stories,
Mm-hmm.
journaling, crafting. I work a lot of energy out in knitting. That's how I learned to be able to move through. And so now, like when I experience strong emotions, I don't have to run from it. I don't have to change my life. Like last week, I was working on a entrepreneur work project and got a really major disappointment. And my ego wanted to do well, we're never pitching ourselves for that type of situation again. Like we're never doing this. And my ego wanted to make all of these rules because I love my ego. It wanted to protect me
Mm-hmm.
from the very heavy and uncomfortable feeling that was actually present, which was disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So ego wanted to protect me and say, well, we're not going to do this and create rules and boundaries to help me never have to experience the heaviness that I was feeling last week. And instead, as an adult who's been in therapy and now understands this work, I was like, actually, I appreciate you, ego. I don't think we need those rules. I think I just need a day to allow myself to experience disappointment. And that's what I did.
Absolutely.
Cleared some meetings off of the calendar, let myself be a lump on the, couch and watch a little more TV than maybe I do in a day. And by the afternoon, I was like ready to start doing small tasks again. And by the following day, I was kind of like, okay, I've moved through, the sting of the disappointment has definitely abated a lot. and I don't need to change my whole like sales program framework. I just need to get, be able to process that sometimes you're going to try to sell and it's going to go well and you get the yes. Sometimes you're going to try to sell somebody your services and they're going to say no. And when they say no, I'm just going to have to give myself a little extra TLC.
I love that. It was interesting. I was watching a clip. It was about relationships, but I love how it related to life, right? So it's like that one person, that one thing that told you no, you're going to let that change every single great yes that you have, every other potential opportunity. You're going to change who you are because that one no came. And I was laughing when I saw that because I was like, are you talking to the perfectionist in me? Is that who you're talking to? Because, hurt dogs holler, right? And we have this thing in us when you have that perfectionist gene that kicks in, when you have to talk to your ego and the perfectionist and say, hey, listen, we're still human. We're going to grieve the loss of this thing, because in grieving the loss of this thing, we'll learn the lesson and we'll be able to take that lesson and do better next time, and or not change anything and just go on to the next person.
Yeah. And I'll add, it is a little bit of perfectionism, but even more than that, it actually is just us as a species that because of who we are and our adaptive nature, we remember and experience pain at a higher intensity than we experience pleasure. So it can be the perfectionism, of why you're going to let this whole thing change. But actually, it just could be that like Homo sapiens, human beings, we just hate the feeling of pain so much that we do a lot more work to avoid pain versus when we experience pleasure, it's very fleeting, right? And so we'll do more work to avoid pain than we will to pursue pleasure. And so that's also going on, right? When you're like, you would change all of this. Yeah, because like we just hate, and it's how we've survived for tens of thousands of years. Survival of the fittest was, being responsive to negative stimuli and learning how we were rewarded for learning how to avoid negative stimuli. That's how our species has evolved. We're not necessarily rewarded for our capacity to experience pleasure.
I agree with that.
I think we should change that. But
yes, we definitely should. But it's interesting because that was one of the things that when I turned 37, that was one of my rules for myself. If I'm fearful to do it, that's what I run into wholeheartedly, right? Because I'm like, the anxiety that fear can create, right? You can get to a place where you start blocking yourself. You start causing the anxiety will start rolling down the street and it's collecting things, collecting untruths, collecting parts of a movie that you didn't even plan on making, right? And my thing was, if I can run into fear, if I feel fear, I know I'm hitting something. I know I'm going to have something good happen. That's for me. I make I statements. I don't try to be general. I don't try to generalize anybody, but that's for me. Not so much pain, but the heckle of, am I working on this? Am I bringing my best to this? Am I doing something that's going to make me happy with me? Because at the end of the day, I want to be so happy with myself, not when. I want to be happy with myself. Even if I lost something or when I lose something, did I bring my best self to the table when it happened? Because sometimes that no is a blessing. It's just a pivot to do something else, to change, to have your time open to receive something else. And that was a big thing for me, was like, okay, it's okay to have fear, but what does that fear entail? Is that me overanalyzing, or is it me excited and not knowing what that next thing is?
Yeah, I love that. You like are hitting on a process that I use for with clients and for myself around fear is when you brush up against the fear, I think step one is to discern. What am I afraid of? Is this something that is real in my physical environment? Or is this something that is real, but it's more in my mind, right? Like essentially like our thoughts, our minds are so advanced right now that we can perceive fear and we can actually like trigger our whole bodies like our into fight or flight. But sometimes you have to look around and like remind yourself, wait, is there actually a bear chasing me? Or is my anxiety just telling me there's a bear chasing me? And you're like, wait, okay, there's not actually a bear chasing me. It's just up here. So now let's move to step two. And one of the things I'm a big fan of is thought dumping. So when the fear, when the thoughts of fear come up, what I'll try to do is you can do this process in like 10 minutes, or longer, but I'll just get a piece of paper or a journal, and whatever the topic is, I'll just start writing down what are the fear thoughts, right? Get them out of your head and put them on paper. Like, let's meet, say it to my face. Like, let's meet face to face. What are all of the negative, fearful thoughts that are coming up? And then I take one of those thoughts, whichever one has the most resonance, the most charge, the one that, like, literally when you read it, you're going to feel something in your body, and do exactly what we talked about. Allow that thought to come to the forefront and then sit with it. Where do you feel that thought in your body, right? Does it cause a tingling in your shoulders? It might cause a humming in your mind, in your brain somewhere. But notice when you have this thought, where does it come up in your body? And learn to just sit with it. You don't have to talk to the thought. You don't have to like try to counter the thought. Just let the thought come. Let your body experience the thought that it wants to, and your body will work through it. Your mind doesn't have to do anything. Your mind just has to hold the thought, to hold space, and your body will do the processing. And you keep checking in with yourself over a few minutes, and eventually you're going to notice that wherever you felt it, maybe it shifted. It started in your left shoulder. It shifted to your right. It started as an intense like sensation in your stomach. It started to dissipate. It's more of a numbing, less sharp, less intense. And then you let it fall away. And I promise, when you read that thought again, and it might take a couple of cycles of processing, that thought will lose its power. And what you want to do is decharge the thought, take away its power, and now look at the situation and say, what do I want to try? Right? Like, if this thought that is keeping me in a place of fear, if I've taken its charge, if I've taken its power away from it, now let me look at the situation and say, okay, what do I want to do? Is there some part of it that I want to test and see, is this true? Can I do this? Do I want to run head on into it because, I feel confident that like I might fail, but I'll be okay with it. But all of these possibilities open up because we took the charge, we took the power out of the fearful thought.
I love that. I love the whole statement, because no, and it's interesting because I think that two of the things that one, you referencing fear and understanding what it feels like to have to sit in your emotions, be present in the emotion, which is something very hard for most people because, when you growing up, what they tell you, shake it off, you're going to be fine.
Yes.
Right. And you're not always fine. Like sometimes you're like, no, mommy, like for real, my elbow is disconnected. Like it's not going to be fine. Like you're going to be fine. Like it's like, Robitussin is not going to fix this, mom. It's not really
it's not.
But also
stop giving kids ginger ale and crackers. Salty crackers and ginger ale have healed nothing. Stop it.
It settles your stomach. Don't you tell them.
Don't
and it's not ginger ale, it's ginger ale. You got it.
I know, ginger ale.
No, I agree with you. But but when it comes to fear, I always tell people like a lot of the times your fear is connected with rejection. That's unhealed rejection, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what happened in your life, a situation. And it's not always this ultra boom. It's little teeny things, right? It's the fact that you wrote a poem and you wanted to read it to your mom or your dad or maybe your brother, and they cracked on it and they joked on it, and you were like, hey, like that was really my feelings. Like I put my heart into this thing. You laughing at it didn't make me feel good. So now I won't write poetry anymore. Or when I do, it's under a pen name. I'm not going to accept it, the things like that. But also teaching people that grieving helps you decompress. Sometimes that thing that everybody else think isn't a big thing. You need a moment, right? You need a moment to be like, that really made me sad. Like I really feel some kind of way about this thing. And I want to process this emotion so that I know I've dealt with it. I've talked about it. I've had a chance to really, like you say, journal about it and get it all down. And that was, I didn't like the way that felt. And that is okay. It doesn't make you weak. It actually, it makes you stronger because when you could admit how you feel as things are going along, you will be able to not only articulate yourself, you'll be able to look at a person who can't and be like, hey, I'm going to love you in this space. I'm going to hug you in this space and give you the safe space to figure out your emotions. You'll be able to empathize with somebody, sympathize with somebody. You'll have that moment in you where you can now pass along that gift. Because the gift of grieving, it used to take me years to grieve. Years. Somebody passed away. It'd be like 2 years. I'm standing in the middle of the market crying at a banana. And it was crazy. And it really took me some time to work through that. I mean, I'm so much better now, still working on it. But grieving for me was like a game changer in so many spaces.
I agree. If there's one thought as we talk about emotions and processing that I would share, like, with your listeners, is that you are supposed to experience every human emotion. Somewhere along the way, we've made judgments that some emotions are better than others, but they're actually all equal because they are all a part of the human experience. And you are a spiritual being that came here for a human experience. When we can change our relationship to our emotions, that our emotions, they're supposed to happen. We're supposed to experience them. We came to this earth to know, what does grief feel like? What does joy feel like? What does disappointment feel like? What does anger feel like? We came, our emotions have a range. And in my perspective, a life well lived is a life that experienced the full range of emotions. If we can buy into that idea, that belief, and get right with that, it changes our relationship to our emotions. My disappointment is not something to be avoided, to duck, to like run from. It is supposed to be experienced. It's okay to say, I don't want to experience it every single day. And I don't experience disappointment. I'm sure that you do not experience grief every day.
No.
But when it comes to my door, can I invite it to sit on the front stoop with me?
Yes.
I almost said, can I invite it in? But sometimes that can feel like a lot.
Yes. That
When it comes to maybe I can't invite some of these heavy ones in, but I can absolutely invite it. I'm like, you know what? We know that you can't come in the house, but we can sit on the front porch together.
My mommy said you can't come in the house because you don't know your parents, but sit on this front porch and let's talk about it. Let's fill it out. Let's sit in silence. I think for me, one of the best conversations I had about emotions it was a gentleman who was talking, and he said, I had a friend who knew that my family and I had gone through some things, and he just came and stood next to me and he said nothing. He just made his presence the thing, right? And I think that being able to, as you said earlier, sit in your emotions doesn't mean that you're talking. It doesn't always mean that you're writing. It doesn't even mean that you're thinking, because sometimes you just can stare off into space. It's nothing there. Sometimes those are the best moments because your body is taking a moment to heal. Your mind is taking a moment to heal. Your spirit is taking a moment to heal, because you need a fully healed. And when I say fully healed, you're until you die, you will be fully trying to heal this thing that we're living in. But really, like, you need a time to fully heal this space that we're in, because there's a new thing coming along. There's a new celebration, a new failure. There's a new moment of insecurity that's coming along, and you want to be able to give it a little bit of time and also recognize it earlier so that you know how to handle these things as they come along.
And you're healing not just the current version of you that's experiencing today's emotion. You have capacity to heal prior versions of you. I've done those like thought dumps of like, deep emotions. And when I'm sitting there, like holding the thought and allowing my body to process it, at least like 50% of the time, my mind will just like fall into a memory.
Yes.
And that memory is so powerful. Like if you are in the thought dumping process, like of dumping and like processing it through the body, and your mind falls into a memory, that's the memory that it falls into is probably a version of you that also has the same unhealed trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So sometimes if I'm healing, like again, as an entrepreneur, learning how to do sales, disappointment, etc. And when I feel disappointment, I might see a vision of myself like in my 20s. And I'm just like, oh, I remember that version of me. And I just lovingly witness it and I'll invite her to that she can get healed in this moment as well. Right. So your healing today heals also has the power to heal prior versions of you to make you a more whole and complete version of yourself and who you're becoming.
I love that. And so on point with what I had a conversation with another lady about. And I said, this podcast is always accompanied by the 11-year-old me, right?
Yeah.
The 11-year-old me was the one who was trying to figure out who they were. I couldn't, don't dress like that. Don't talk like that. Don't look like that. Don't. You know, it's always the policing of a Black girl's body, right? We have
Yeah.
this really bad habit of the minute a curve shows up, somehow she becomes a sexual being. We don't even know what the fuck y'all talking about majority of the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, so it's always, I say, my 11-year-old self, it's always a part of the podcast. It's always
Yeah.
getting to dress up. It's always getting to play. It's always getting to live, because that is healing something in me and it continues to heal. And I also believe that a lot of the conversations that I have with people, my future self is sending that information back. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, this is going to help us, but we need to talk about it. Let's talk it through and
Yeah.
listen to yourself sometimes, and have great discernment over, am I the person giving myself advice, or am I using the voice of other people to give myself
Mm.
advice? And we
Yeah.
don't always, and sometimes it's going to be hard to discern that, right? Because you got your mom's voice, your dad's voice, your granny's voice, it's all these voices, and some of their information is so powerful, it's amazing, it's great, but some of it was very detrimental.
Yeah.
Some of it is not useful in today's time because it just doesn't fit. It's okay that
Yeah.
it doesn't fit, because it means that we're evolving as people. But also understanding that, like, your voice is going to always tell you how to be the greatest you. Your voice is, it's never going to say you would look ugly in that. That's not your voice. Your voice is not here to put you down. But like, pay attention to those things. Don't be delusional like I am. You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
I can fit in those jeans, girl. You better put that, you know, you ain't wore a size. You better stop it. I will
You're
try them on
like,
though. I will try them to my kneecaps.
I mean, I just like to say we are also timeless beings. So when you say I can fit into that, it's you saying it on behalf of you in 6 months and a rigorous diet and exercise plan. Absolutely.
Girl,
You
I
can
done
fit
ripped them
into
darns, the pockets gone. You know how you have your favorite pair? I have one sweater from when I was in high school and one
Mhm.
pair of jeans. I don't even want to be that size anymore. The pockets ripped off. That's how I knew I wore them too. The pockets are ripped off and the bottom of the jeans are done.
You
Why?
have a daughter. Do you make your daughter like put them on and dress up for like
No,
mommy's benefit?
no. All look, so I have two girls, one boy.
Yeah.
My two girls don't like none of this.
Oh,
All right. This is solely me. They look at
okay.
me and be like, "You look so nice, mommy." Yeah, I'm gonna put some lip gloss on. I'm out of here. Like, this is none of, they have none of this, none of this. But I'm so proud of them for not having this, and still
Yeah.
in being very secure in who they are, right? Because
Yeah.
that need to please somebody, that let me know that I was doing something right as a woman to another woman, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to look like me to be with me. None of my friends, I'm like, hey, if you start feeling insecure around me, we need to talk to me
Yeah.
and then talk to yourself. We need to talk, because you don't have to change who you are. Like, I'm going to be too much. But I said, that's the little girl in me who loved Hollywood glam, that loved
Yeah.
watching all of these things. And I get to live out that dream. That's my dream. But I don't want you to feel like you need to hold on. No, what was your dream? What did you want to
Yes.
do? Where did you want to go? What did you want to see in yourself? And I think that with my girls, I was just like, hey, no, mommy and me days are wonderful. I'm not knocking it, but that's not our relationship. That's not what you wanted to do. Like, you said you was gonna wear a zebra shirt, a polka dot bottom. I mean, I do want to talk to you about these colors, but
They don't go together, but like
but if that's what you're going for,
yes.
we're gonna work you into you, right?
Yes.
And but I think that that's like the hardest part, trying to blend the trying to blend the personalities when I'm more logical in my thinking. Everybody else in my house has more emotion attached to them. But what they
Mhm.
do is that they hold me accountable for my emotions so
Mm.
that I can feel those things and I can better articulate myself because I was not always like that. And what my
Yeah.
logic does, it anchors us down so that we can get the bills paid. We can get the work done. And that's why I love how like how forgiving we are in our spaces within
Yeah.
my house, right? So then when I go out into the world, I almost don't pay attention to what's happening out there because I'm very secure in this tribe that I have,
Yeah.
and I think that makes such a big difference to be able to, even when you and I had the conversation prior to, right? You having this confidence in yourself to say, this space is stressful for me.
Mhm.
And even though it doesn't look like what my family would prefer for me, I know in my head that I can accomplish this goal. I can make this thing work out,
Yeah.
right? And I think that that takes so much courage to step outside of the generations
Yeah.
and raise your hand and be like, "So I disagree with that?" Eh,
What you're hitting on, and I love, is what does it actually mean to honor your elders and your ancestors? Is
mhm.
it to imitate what they did? But what actually I hear you saying that you're modeling for your children is that Lovely walks in her sovereignty and her authority. And the best way that your children could reflect who you are is to walk in their own sovereignty
Absolutely.
and authority. That's what we need
Absolutely.
more of, right? So it's the I had a pastor I watched one time, watched the sermon one time, and he talks about like being the body of Christ, right? Everybody's trying to be the hand. Everybody wants to be in like the choir, right? Like everybody wants to be at the pulpit, but we're a body. I need somebody who loves being a foot. We need people who love being an ear. We need somebody who can't wait to be the right butt cheek and somebody who wants to be the left butt cheek, right? Like that's what it actually means, is to be a body. It's each of us bringing our unique set of
Mhm.
skills. And the unique way that we express those skills into the world to serve a purpose to help people, and bringing it all to work together in harmony and unison, not imitating and replicating, but living each in our full authority and sovereignty, and then understanding how to connect your authority to my authority to
Mhm.
better serve the people that we are uniquely able to reach and support.
I love that. And I love the analogy about the body because I always tell people when we start having this conversation, I said, listen, I am a child of God. Okay. I'm a child of God and I am created in his likeness. Whatever
Mhm.
his likeness needs to be, that's what I was created in. And it, in order for him to help me, he asked me to help myself. Right. So that means
Mhm.
I need to do the work. I need to understand. I need to walk in the light that and find my purpose. Your purpose isn't always this big showtime because we need every level so that we can build this great building. We can build this great body.
Yeah.
And if I'm made in his likeness and he already knows where my heart is, right? Then as long as I am doing my part, I am creating spaces for other people to be able to do their part. We're
Yes.
building these beautiful bridges together.
Mhm.
I'm good. Like you can shut. I'm not going to change who I am so that I fit into where you fit because I'm not supposed to be you. Like your name is your name. My
Yes.
name is my name. That's two different names, babes. Like I can't
Yes.
help you out of that.
And I can believe, and when people think that there isn't space for us to each have our own, to me, I'm like, that just signals a small sense of God, you have a smaller vision of your God. Because we each reflect him, and it's all possible that we each are unique in that reflection if we realize the greatness and the vastness of what we're reflecting. If what we
Absolutely.
think are reflecting is small and narrow and defined, then yeah, your reflection and my reflection must have some overlap, right? And I'm
That's
like,
right.
actually, it doesn't. And if I don't see an overlap, cool, that's just proof of the vastness of God, right? So, but people we miss that. And so I'm excited. This is how it's great. Like, even though I coach leadership, this is why my clients come to me, because, learning how to make money, to lead teams. Yeah, we're going to do that. But for me, it's way more about who are you being while you're a leader, right? Like, we are human beings, not human doings. My favorite reframe of the past like 5 years was taking purpose. Purpose is not something that I don't do purpose.
Yeah.
My purpose can't be in doing. I'm like, oh my goodness, how in the world, like, if I, am a child of this like beautiful and vast God, what exactly does he need me to do? Nothing, right? What he wants is for me to be with him, right? So I focus on my purposes in being, right? Like, it's who am I becoming? It's who am the woman. And yes, we're going to lead and accomplish and start some businesses, but it's all in service of the human that I am being and that I'm becoming in my relationship, in my daily walk. That's what this is about. Not actually like, building and doing things, because it could use anybody to do the doing, right? It's just, it's the being. That's what's unique to me, is like me being in relationship.
I love that. And that's one of my husband is an entrepreneur. He's been an entrepreneur for almost 30 years now. And watching him was what made me not want to be an entrepreneur, because I was like, you watch somebody start from like, no lie, bootstraps, and like fall forward, fall back. I was like, boy, at some point I was like, get your feet out of that whirlwind, like just throw them around. And one of his things that he loves to do, he loves to coach people about businesses. And one day he approached me and he was like, Lee, you should come with me. We could do this. I said, I don't want to coach the business. I want to coach the person. I said, because if we don't deal with, and acknowledge the pitfalls and the celebrations and these great characteristics of the person, they will bring that into their business and they will either build it or destroy it. We have to deal with the people. The person is so important to this whole conglomerate. Like, you can have a mega business, and we've seen it time and time again where the CEO goes down and every single person crumbles under him or her, because the business wasn't built on a foundation of health and wealth in the sense of purpose, right? And like you say, purpose not doing, purpose light, the light that you carry. When you walk into a space, how you take up that space, how you give other people space to take up space as well, and how your space bends with other people so that we all have room to be ourselves, makes such a big difference. But I agree with you 100%. I want the person. Like you come here. And I send him, you go fix the building. I don't know what y'all do out there, but on the inside, I'm working on the inside of this person.
Yes. If we get the inside right, the world around us will align with it, right? The universe aligns with a made up mind. So I'm the same way. Focus on the person, get the being right. Focus on how you are showing up in the world, how people experience you, right? What is their experience of you? Does it encourage and make them want to live fully into their light and their authority? Get that right. And the opportunity, the business, the provision, it will align to that version of you. And when those things are out of alignment, I always start with, well, who are you being? Right. And is that authentic? And
that's a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt. Who are you being? Oh, that's good.
Yes.
Woo! That was a good one right there. I love it. Okay, so tell people where they can find you.
Oh, thank you. So my company is Hype and Harvest. You can find me on the internet, sorry. So my company is Hype and Harvest. You can find me online at hypeandharvest.com. I'm also on Instagram at Hype and Harvest, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn under Amber Jackson. Look for the bright yellow shining background.
I love it. I love it. And let me tell you, I knew it was going to be good. I just knew we were going to have such a great conversation, because the first conversation offline, I was like, you would thought that we was recording a podcast back then. Like, y'all missed some good, you was dropping gems. Like, for real. But I think that for me, meeting people who understand what it means to have your spirituality be such a strong part of your individuality. Like
Mhm.
it's so important, right? Because each person's spiritual walk is so different. It's
Yeah.
your own little niche and your own little subsection. And it's still so important because when your spirit is off, everybody that you touch, it throws them off a little bit until we all kind of get stable again. And I think that that's where having a coach, having a mentor, working in spaces with people who want to help you see yourself, but who are also working on themselves. Because if
Yeah.
you have a coach that's not working on themselves, if you have a coach that doesn't have a coach, and that coach doesn't have a coach, because it's like a therapist. The therapist needs a therapist, like that you need that detox, but you also want somebody who's trying to stay relevant, who understands what it means to not just look in the books, but look in the heart, right?
Yeah.
Because some stuff you're just going to walk into a space and feel. You're going to be like, oh, something's off. Let's deal with the off. We can't even deal with the problem you told me in the email is not going to work out. So, Amber, that's what I love about you. I feel like you are not only are you working on yourself, but you're working on yourself so that other people get to touch the light that's going to help make them brighter. And that girlfriend is good. That's good.
Thank you. You see me. Thank you for the gift to be seen by you. That's
We
yeah.
giving internet hugs.
Yes, internet hugs.
I
Thank
love it.
you.
Love it. Thank you
Yeah.
guys so much for being a part of the podcast. We're gonna see you next time because Amber gonna come back. She don't have a choice.
Girl, you let me know. I will be here. We'll do part 3, but we'll call it part 2 because they missed part 1. Whoops.
See, guys, I know I said it right. I say I was right. I was right. Amber is so I just Amber, we're giving you internet hugs all day, every day. I love watching people not only see their greatness, but understand how important their greatness is, right? And how you connect your spirit and your faith and your tenaciousness for learning and take all of that, hype and harvest it all up, right? Hyping up the CEOs, hyping up leaderships, right? And then harvest, going back and tilling the soil and yielding this great energy, right? Because at the end of the day, your spirituality is such a large part of how you build a business, what you see in that business, how profitable that business is because of how well you take care of the people around you, the people who are with you. And Miss Amber Jackson did such an amazing job. She's a cutie patootie. I love it. Thank you guys so much for following the podcast. If you could please like, subscribe, follow, send a courier pigeon with a message, we would truly appreciate it. And remember, we are learning to articulate our feelings, wants, needs, and desires so we can better advocate for ourselves and the people that we love. You guys be so good. Mwah. Bye. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you found some healing, connection, and joy. Until next time, bye, loves.